When most people hear the word philosophy, they picture academics in tweed jackets arguing in a pub about the true nature of reality. It feels entirely disconnected from actual life. That stereotype masks a severe vulnerability. Most of us go through modern life operating on moral autopilot, adopting values and making rapid decisions without ever questioning the structural mechanics behind them. Take a highly common situation. You're walking down the street. Someone asks for spare change, and you have to decide whether to hand over $5. That split-second choice is actually a complex calculus. You are rapidly weighing the ethics of charity against utilitarian resource allocation, asking if that money is better spent at a registered nonprofit, and judging the limits of human autonomy. You are practicing philosophy every day. The only difference is whether you are doing it intentionally or blindly. The philosopher Simon Blackburn calls this intentional practice conceptual engineering. If a civil engineer wants to build a bridge, they have to study material sciences and physics. They need to know exactly how much weight the structure can bear before the steel snaps. The same rule applies to our minds. We have to study our own concepts and beliefs to ensure our worldview can actually withstand the pressure of reality. Now, consider what happens when an individual's conceptual framework is handed systemic power. The radius of consequence for their decisions expands from a single street corner to millions of citizens. At that scale, an unchecked moral framework can trigger systemic, real-world collapse. To see the true weight of that collapse, we have to scale all the way up to the level of the nation-state. Sociologist Max Weber defined the state in specific terms. It is the single entity claiming a monopoly on the legitimate use of physical violence. When you combine moral autopilot with the authorized use of lethal force, a personal blind spot becomes an active threat to public survival. Weber argued wielding such power requires three qualities. First is passion, a deep dedication to a cause. Second is proportion. A leader must step back, maintain inner calm, and view realities with detachment. The final requirement is responsibility, owning the outcomes of those actions. Weber's framework provides the structural integrity that prevents a state's monopoly on violence from becoming a sequence of random, destructive acts. Weber split moral decision-making into two distinct paths. The ethic of conviction is about following absolute moral rules. The goal is to keep your own soul pure, regardless of what happens next. The ethic of responsibility demands the opposite. It requires a leader to own the messy, foreseeable consequences of their choices. To test these two ethics, look at the brutal calculus of the American Civil War. President Abraham Lincoln faced a horrific choice: whether to sign a retaliatory execution order. It stated that for every Black Union prisoner executed by the Confederacy, the Union Army would execute a Confederate prisoner in return. Following through on this order strictly violates the ethic of conviction because killing a captive is inherently wrong, but it satisfies the ethic of responsibility by attempting to prevent the future slaughter of Union troops. Weber's conclusion is that we live in an ethically irrational world. To achieve actual good, a leader has no choice but to accept the ethic of responsibility and get their hands dirty. We are now scaling up past human states and entering the era of non-human minds. The core technological reality is that artificial intelligence is inherently value-loaded. Every line of code written and every dataset an AI is oriented toward represents an active, engineered choice about morality. If technologists fail to practice the ethic of responsibility, we will permanently encode our flawed moral autopilot into the machines that govern our future. As we move toward algorithmic governance, philosophy functions as a technical design requirement. It is the only way to ensure our machines don't simply automate our unexamined errors. The ultimate rejection of that passive ivory tower stereotype is the philosopher Simone Weil. She actively embodied her philosophy, famously quitting a comfortable academic position to work in a factory, and later embedding herself in a Spanish Civil War militia to understand the reality of the people she wrote about. Her boots-on-the-ground action stands in sharp contrast to the isolated, self-preserving nature of the ethic of conviction. At every level of human action, the street corner, the state house, or the server farm, our choices are value-loaded.
Dealing with that reality requires us to abandon our moral autopilot and commit to the deliberate work of conceptual engineering.